Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Now for the guy who relishes in separating a fool from his money. Here's your host, Dave Carney.
Well, I did go to the Dale Carnegie Institute a couple of times, and that was, I want to say, one of maybe Andrew Carnegie's better quotes. A fool and their money are soon parted. And it's always kind of held up. And listen, what are we supposed to do? Money's not real anyways. It's an agreement that we have between each other to exchange modes of, I don't know, transferable, sometimes valuable objects for another. And yeah, I can be that guy. If they need to get rid of it, I'll take it. That's for sure. Might as well spend it on something like go to betus.com, enter the promo code Carnival, get yourself a free 125% deposit match. Make some wagers, Chad. We're going to talk a lot of NFL betting this morning here on the program. We've also got a bunch of big news out of, I would say Buffalo, but Cincinnati. Damar Hamlin is improving tremendously. And yesterday, Damar Hamlin actually regained consciousness. The first thing, and this is his communication through writing, was, did we win the game? The man comes out of a near-death coma and asks, did we win the game? Yeah. Writing this out to doctors. It's such a tremendous story. And Chad, for what it's worth, I know Buffalo players are still a little bit shook up. Dude, New England's going to get fucking boat raced. New England's going to get boat raced really, really bad because this Buffalo team, like we talked about yesterday, if this guy gives the thumbs up, whoa, all right, the guns of Navarone are coming out here, baby. And if you're the Patriots and Mac Jones, dude, you might look at Bailey Zappi and be like, ow, I pulled my Alabama hamstring, and they're going to say, what's that? That's when a whole bunch of big dudes come after me, and I don't like where this is going. And that's what I think that Mac Jones is going to be up against. Buffalo's going to fucking kill those guys.
Yeah, was it like, did it open at like 10 or 13, and then it got bet down to 7?
Oh, yeah.
Something like that?
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what happened. And I think that, listen, we looked at the line yesterday, and it was 6.5. Buffalo was only getting 6.5, and I thought, that's almost a gift. I mean, it really is. That was almost a gift. I'm going to pull up the lines here as we're speaking, just to make sure that we've got the most current numbers up here. But listen, I think that it's just such a wonderful thing. I'm so excited for the family of Damar Hamlin and for really just all of us in the world of sports, because this kind of pallor that hangs over the sport, especially of professional football, which we love the most, isn't good. This is not a good thing for sports. Like when people die on the field, when they die in the ring or on the court or something, bad juju.
Yeah, and he literally did die. He literally died on the field, and they revived him, which is remarkable that, again, as you mentioned, that he's awake, he's conscious, he's asking, the question that any athlete would ask, did we win the game? I probably would have asked the same thing, right? Because it's the last thing you remember. You're like, Did we win? And then, so come to find out, the league they have determined it's a no contest.
Yes.
So it's like a tie, but it's not a tie.
So that's what we're going through right now. So the NFL yesterday said that the game would not resume. So this is the statement from Commissioner Goodell. Quote, "This has been a very difficult week. We continue to focus on the recovery of Damar Hamlin and are encouraged by the improvements in his condition, as well as the tremendous outpouring of support and care for Damar and his family from around the country. We're also incredibly appreciative of the amazing work of the medical professionals and commend each and every one of them." They then go on to say, the announcing of the decision to cancel the game, the NFL cited 3 factors, Chad. They said the outcome would have no bearing on which teams qualified for the postseason, which was true. Mm-hmm. Playing the game would have altered the playoff schedule for the remaining teams. That's true. And not playing the game would allow clubs to know the postseason possibilities before the start of Week 18. So the way that I'm looking at this, it's going to be considered a no contest, which in the standings would then basically make it a tie. Right? It won't show up as a tie. They're not going to
register anything, basically.
It won't register anything. Right. It's like a no contest. But I think the percentile points and the ways that statistically, possibly Buffalo could still get that number 1 seed, which I don't actually, is that still on the table? I don't know. I think so, because they're 12-3. They would have been 12-4 if they'd lost to Cincinnati. So it's still technically on the table if they finish with 13 wins and the Kansas City loses. There's some things that could happen, I believe. But again, the game didn't have any bearing on whether the Bengals or the Bills were making the playoffs. That was happening no matter what.
Well, we talked about it. I didn't see how they were going to be able to make it work anyway without adjusting not only other teams' schedules, but you're talking about TV contracts. There's so many different things that are involved in all of this, because you didn't have enough time to do it. So you wouldn't have been able, the only other way to do it would have been on Tuesday. And obviously they weren't going to do that.
Right.
So that was off the table. So then it was, okay, do we push the playoffs back a week and then suck up that instead of 2 weeks between the Super Bowl, there's only a week, but you've got all of these TV contracts. You've got all of this lined up as far as dates go. How will that work? Clearly this was the right decision. And I guess it will look like those two teams only played 16 games instead of 17.
Yes.
Which is no big deal.
Not really. And I would say to the NFL, if you really, really, really thought that the health and safety was the tantamount, right? Like this was the biggest part of your modus operandi was keeping these players safe and healthy. Why did you add a 17th game? Like, why do you play preseason? Right. College doesn't have preseason. Do you know why? Because it's just extra hits on those guys. That's all that is. So you play a 17th game. You have an 18th week. You play a 4-week preseason or a 3-week preseason, whatever. It's a lot of football. And I don't know that the NFL they're talking out of two sides of their mouth in a lot of ways with this stuff. Well, we want to make sure that, everybody's as safe as possible. However, we're going to get you into the equivalent of 5 more accidents this week. Have another one. I mean, seriously, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, you know why. Obviously, the more games, the more money and all of that. That's and as football fans, it's not like football fans don't like it. They like it. Hey, an extra week of football. Cool.
Sure.
A meaningful football. That was been the argument with preseason is who gives a shit?
Exactly.
Except for nerds. There's some nerds out there that really like it. It's kind of like going to spring training and stuff. And you get to, see who's look at the depth chart and go, okay, who's your number 1? Who's your number 2 at this position? And you got a little, chart and you fill it out and you're like, oh my God, this is so interesting. I can't wait to get back to work and tell them my penalty. But for the most part, nobody cares.
No, I think for baseball, that makes a lot more sense. Like with the NFL, you're basically watching a collection of players that are going to be on somebody else's practice squad, right? Like that's what preseason is. It's like, which one of these people is not going to be on my team coming up this season? Because again, we know that the good players, the really good players, they don't want to play in the preseason any fucking way, right? Like Rodgers is never going to suit up for a preseason game the rest of his career.
Right.
The only guy that'd be crazy enough to do it would probably be Tom Brady. Like Tom Brady would probably suit up for every game, He might actually become the first real official on-field casualty in the NFL. Like they might have to drag Tom Brady off of the field dead. Yeah. I'm serious. That guy might never fucking retire.
I know. At some point, he's got to hang it out. Facebook user saying, I assume a no contest means you go off the win percentage based on 16 games. A tie works like a half a win and a half a loss. This is no game and not a tie, I believe. I think that's correct. That sounds about right.
And this is where I'm going to go ahead and defer because when I was listening to some people, the information started coming out a bit later last night when I started to get it because I was watching the Celtics just absolutely rickroll the fucking Mavericks, who are a terrible team.
Yeah.
So when the information was coming to me, I was hearing a couple of different takes on this, and one of them was, and this was from, I want to say, Ryan Clark on ESPN. One of them was that a tie and a no contest in effect would have the same bearing on the standings. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm not 100% sure. And listen, this is what we've got the likes of Rob Dog from Stoddard for. I mean, we've got Joey Miller. What are you kids doing this morning? And Mike Byers, by the way, if you're at a computer this morning, buddy, type it up. Let's see what we've got.
Nerd out.
Yeah, clear it out. Let's get this information. Let's take a quick pause because I want to come back, unveil this morning's poll question, which is up on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, as well as our Sports Carnival group page, nearing the 300th members. Super excited about that. We've got a whole bunch of NFL betting to talk about. We'll preview the Bucks and the Badgers coming up this weekend. And, of course, lots of Packers-Lions talk. Stay tuned. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just a regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Hello, Hello, this is Professor Fission for Nuke and Nuke Light, the world's first nuclear beer. Brewed and nuked in 1956 and recently found in Warehouse 14. How's it still fresh, you may ask? Well, thanks to our friends Cesium-137, Stromium-90, and Plutonium-239, these beers will stay fresh for another 90 years. Not only does Nuke and Nuke Light have 10 times the kick, but you're sure to be a hit at the party because it helps your urine glow in the dark.
Nuke and Nuke Light. Pick up a case today before it melts through your grocer's floor. And dilute care. Yummy.
Broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios, this is the Sports Carnival. Remember, it could be that your purpose in life is to serve as a warning to others. Now, here's your host, Dave Carney.
Wow. All right, so that was deep. What was that, Nietzsche, or what was that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Niche. It was niche.
That was a niche fucking joke, that's for sure. I didn't get that one. No big deal though, because we've got
basically it means if you're a fuck up, that means that maybe your purpose is to show other people what not to do.
I see. Yeah. So you become the example by losing, in effect.
Yeah. I'm just saying, if you're out there and you're thinking, God, what is my purpose in life? All I ever do is fuck things up.
Sure.
You're blazing a path for everybody else to know what not to do.
I like that. I fear that unfortunately people are such parrots that becomes more of the, hey, let's do what that guy does or whatever. But I would love it if it were a point of introspection and reflection, because we know there's lots of that going around. I mean, nuance is something that in today's day and age, I find there to be more of than ever. Like, I mean, critical thinking, nuance, deep dives, introspection. Yeah, absolutely. Call.
Introspection. Look at you.
Yeah, look at us. We're sounding like two guys that have been canceled 10 years ago and are just doing a radio show on the internet or something.
Yeah. Basically.
Speaking of, thanks to our great friends here, the Recovery Room, Trauma Center Studios. That's where both of us broadcast live coast to coast. And 7th and Mississippi is where you find the Recovery Room this weekend. Going to be a fun weekend. You know why, Chad? Because I'll just tell you, I'm going to be working my first shift over at the Recovery Room on Saturday morning. So 8 to noon, breakfast is served Saturday and Sunday. It's a huge brouhaha because there's not a ton of breakfast places in town, right? We drink way too much in this particular area for many people to get up to cook breakfast, one, and to eat breakfast, two. But for those that are looking to tie the hair of the dog on and get some food, I'll be there Saturday morning starting at 9. I'm going to be coming up soon. This is a little preview. I'm going to be doing some bartending at the Recovery Room, and we're going to use those particular nights to have a real good time with all of our audience members that want to come out and join. So that'll be Saturday, and thank you to the Recovery Room for powering the Trauma Center Studios. Our good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi, the Coos, over at Land Home Financial's Midwest Mortgage Team, the official mortgage provider of the show, and of course, Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate, the official real estate provider of the program. Always good to say what's up to those boys. Anthony, Tony Rousa, and Brian Sandmeyer down at Preferred Insurance Chat. I'm going to be getting a whole bunch of insurance over to these cats once we move from Stoddard, which I can't believe. I'm looking at the calendar. It's the 6th of January. I've got 14 days. It'll be 2 weeks until I'm out. Can you believe that?
Are you ready?
Is anybody really ready until it actually happens? Because I feel like no is the answer right now.
Does anybody really know what time it is?
That was
I thought we were doing a thing. No? Is that not?
No,
okay.
What time is it? It's game time. Ooh. All right.
Hey,
so,
Rob Dog's checking in. He says NFL playoff picture has it where now the Kansas City Chiefs are the number 1 seed and the Bills are the what?
See, he's basically saying the playoff picture has it where now the Chiefs are the number 1 seed and the Bills are the 2nd seed. So it looks like they're saying Kansas City Chiefs are better from their win percentage. Okay, but here's the thing. If Buffalo is, which they are, they're 12-3 right now, right? So that's where their record's at. Let me make sure I've got this correct. Yeah, they're 12-3. Okay, well, riddle me this. If Kansas City somehow loses to the Raiders, which I don't think they'll do, but they almost lost to the Broncos last week, right?
Yeah, it could happen.
If Kansas City somehow loses to the Raiders, how is 13-4 better than 13-3 when Buffalo fucking destroys New England? It's not, because then Kansas City, if they go 13-3, their win percentage right now is already 813, and Buffalo's is 800. So if Buffalo wins and they're 13-3, their win percentage will be 813, and I don't know what 13-4 is, but it's less than 813.
Right.
So then that means Buffalo gets the number 1 seed.
There's a lot of math involved here.
Well, I mean, this is why this is such a fucking problem for the NFL, right? Because of this. I mean, not to say that DeMar Hamlin, it was what it was,
I was
But
going to
that's why
say,
this is such a logistical, kind of a clusterfuck.
I don't know how else they were going to do it, though. There's no other way to resolve
No
this.
way. No, if it was week 8 and there was bye weeks still involved and you could have, flexed out a bye week or something, fine. That would have been
I'm just
the way
curious,
to do it.
and if anybody knows, this would be great. I don't know what I guess I would like to know what the difference is technically between no contest and a tie as far as how this lays out. Because basically to me, that means the same thing. So it's not going to show where they're going to have, 13-3-1. It's going to be 13-3.
Yeah.
Right? That's how that, or, depending on what happens this weekend.
Sure.
So it won't show up as a tie on the record, but it will basically be a tie. So why didn't they make it a tie?
Yeah, again, this is really a little bit above my pay grade, okay? And I would love to be able to say for sure, but here's the thing. I've been trying to get as much as I could this morning from different places, checking like 3 or 4 different websites.
Nobody else knows either.
Not really.
Yeah.
And it's just what it is. It's the no contest. Basically, it's going to come down to percentage points anyways. And if things hold serve and Kansas City does what we all rightly expect them to do, which is to destroy the Raiders and Jared Stidham, they're in the number 1 seed. And Patrick Mahomes is presumptively this year's most valuable player, right? Because I think he's going to break Drew Brees' single season record for yards and all of that. Okay, so it won't matter. Basically, what the NFL was looking at, I think, under a number of circumstances and scenarios is basically it won't matter. But if Kansas City does lose, with a win and or a Bills loss at the Pats, sure. Okay, so Pat Tully, that was good. Or no, that was Rob Dog that put that in there. Okay. Mm-hmm. So see what I'm saying? The Chiefs clinch with a win or a Bills loss. So if the Bills win, that's what I'm saying. If the Bills win, they're 13-3 and they get the number 1 seed. Because if Kansas City loses and they're 13-4, the winning percentages of those 2 teams means Buffalo gets that.
Yeah, Pat Tully saying the NFL is hoping that the Chiefs win and the Bengals win and the Bills lose, then the no contest will have no effect whatsoever.
Indeed. Okay. And then that very well may
set up. Could happen.
It very well could happen. And then I kind of wonder, well, that would still mean that if the Bengals win and the Bills win, I mean, the Bills are already division champions, so there's nothing that they can do to drop out of 1 through 4. If the Bengals win, I believe they're also division champions because Baltimore, if they win and the Bengals lose, could potentially get that division themselves. So listen, I think that for what it's worth at this point, we have to just say is this. Thank God DeMar Hamlin's alive and that the playoffs are going to be not clouded with a death of a player. Because if that's what we had to deal with, Chad, if that's something that you and I had to carry through the next 4 to 5 weeks or whatever that would be until the Super Bowl, right? That would be a hard ask because that's something that sport really doesn't want to have to focus on, especially not when the fun of the game in many instances, especially professional football, is go out there and hit that motherfucker as hard as you can, right? You want to knock the stuffing out of him, take his legs out. I was watching Michael Vick's 30 for 30. He heard guys on the sidelines like, take his legs out. He's like, I know they wanted to get me. I know that they wanted to hurt me. The NFL's about getting hit, so thank God for DeMar Hamlin being alive and getting better. Jeff Selke says maybe it's about tiebreakers. The game, as you alluded to, wouldn't affect win percentage. Listen, I think this is where I'm just going to have to take a pause because if the game that they had was considered a tie, the tie does count as an extra half win, half loss, right?
And that's really where it makes the difference. You're right. It is because it is considered a half, right?
Right.
I didn't think about that. So a no contest is really has no effect.
It's just like it didn't get played. It's almost like those 2 teams had a bus breakdown and couldn't make it to the game, and there was no other way to make it up. And they just played less games. Here is the thing. It's not completely unprecedented in NFL history, guys and gals, but this has not happened where 1 or 2 teams haven't played the same number of games as everybody else since 1932. So before much of what we know the NFL to be right now was really happening, that was the last time that happened. By the way, if you were a Packer fan back then, wasn't that glorious time? Wasn't that a glorious time? The 1920s and 30s were all about the Green Bay Packers. Sure, there were only 6 teams, and sure.
A shot. Come on, man.
What are you talking about? Those are the good old days. Damn it. I asked Packer fans this once. I'll ask them again. Who likes the past more, us or the South? You tell me it's not us. Let's see if those fucking rednecks don't have something to say about that, though.
It's always nice to have glory at some point in the history of a team that you
Of
like.
course it is.
Hopefully it's more recent than the 30s or the 40s. But, there are other teams that are similar that have had a great past and not done so well in the future.
Dude, I was at this bar in North La Crosse, Sam's, which has a lot of old Packer memorabilia, right? Like a lot of old Packer memorabilia. So in the bathroom, in the pichadu, if you will, right above the urinal stall, are like trading cards, or maybe they were created at some point of some of those early Packer teams. You should have seen the names on some of these guys. I mean, you'd think that the NBA got weird with nicknames in Allen Iverson's day. Once you look at some of these characters, and they all look like they just came off of like the boat from Ellis Island. It was so weird and so wild and different. Most of them had the lunch satchels and their uniforms for their next jobs, like right behind them in the pictures.
Right.
Like they're playing, but they had to make sure, because the Acme Packing Company, which actually owned them, needed them back to work. You know what I'm saying? So go play a little football, go back to work.
That was really Acme. I thought that was only in.
No, that's where that came.
I thought that was only Wile E. Coyotes.
Where you
got all this.
The Acme Packing Company is who started and sponsored the Packers, the Green Bay Packers.
Rob Dog always lamenting that he's a Chicago Bears fan. Was it ever a good time to be a Chicago's Bear fan? Yeah, 85, 86, Super Bowl Shuffle. Do you remember that?
Back in the 1920s, and
that was a pretty good time to be a Bears fan.
Does anybody remember George Halas coaching?
Yes.
Come on, guys.
Right?
This is history, and we have to remember it just like it was yesterday.
You don't remember Sid Luckman? Come on.
What are you talking about? Lefty foot? Oh, these characters.
I did like everybody was Crazy Legs, or they always had all these weird nicknames and stuff. And it was just like the fastest white guy in the neighborhood was basically.
Yeah. Scamper Rose over there. Hey, look at that. Hey, look at that. Who knew he could run so good at Nickas? Yeah, and the uniforms, I like those ones too, because they did look a lot more. They looked a little bit more like baseball uniforms still at the time, with actual belt buckles, which they still wear now, right? Like the belts are on the uniforms. They're just underneath the jerseys for the most part. But yeah, I find it fun because I loved basketball growing up, and a lot of people play soccer. They just have like loose clothing on. I always find it fun when you're putting belts on to go out and perform athletics. It's like, did you get your belt? Well, of course I did.
Gotta have a belt.
What about your hat?
Jeffrey has a good Packer joke. Why does it take 100 Packer fans to change a light bulb? Only one guy actually changed the light bulb. The other 99 guys talk about how great the old light bulb was.
Oh, man.
Classic. Good one, Jeffrey. I like that.
Fired. Hey, speaking of the Packers, Chad, the Sports Carnival on Twitter is at the Sports Carney, and on our Facebook group page, we're asking audience members a question, and I didn't think it would be much different results-wise than what it looks like right now. But who's going to win on Sunday? All right, we're going to talk more about the game from a betting perspective a little bit later, but who's going to win on Sunday? Just heads up or down. Packers, Lions, 87.5% of respondents there on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney right now. Chatter saying, go ahead and take a wild guess. Just take a guess.
I think they're going to say Packers.
Go, Pack, go. Our Facebook group page, 8416, also take a wild guess.
I would say Packers.
Look at you. Check out the big brain on Chad.
I can't believe I'm actually saying this because I didn't think I would be saying this 5 weeks ago. I think the Packers are in the playoffs. I think they're going to win this game.
I do
too. They're going to win this game pretty handily. Unfortunately, the Lions don't play very good defense, and I think the way that the Packers are rolling right now, I think they're going to win. They're going to get in the playoffs, and I think then it's who knows what happens. I mean, this is crazy. And again, I go back to that smirk, that shit-eating grin on Aaron Rodgers' face every time he talks to one of these reporters in the last couple of weeks, and you're just kind of like, what does he know? That what is it? There's something there. It's just very interesting. But you know what? Congratulations to Packer fans, and I personally apologize for shitting on them this whole season. But rightfully so at times, right? I mean, they deserved it a little bit.
I don't apologize. I don't apologize for shitting on them because they were playing like shit. And this is my job. It's to call it like I see it. And I know that sometimes that sounds like it's not a Packer fanboy club because it's not. Listen, I'm a fan of the Packers for sure. But when it's really, really bad, you have to be able to say it's really, really bad. Now, Aaron Charles Rodgers and this Green Bay Packer team, if they make the postseason, which I agree with you as well, they will beat the Detroit Lions. I just think the home field advantage at Lambeau, the fact that the Packers and many of their better players have played in positions like this before, and the Detroit Lions have largely not, save for Jared Goff, and maybe there's a couple of other guys. I just think that there's too much experience for the Green Bay Packers and just recent experience with Matt LaFleur and the games that they have played in the postseason, regardless of overall outcome. So I really like the Packers here. But listen, Detroit's been playing hot football. They really have. This is a team that's got a lot of buy-in here with Dan Campbell. I don't know that it's going to be as big of a blowout as maybe you think it is, but I also don't apologize for calling them out on their shit because that was bad. What we were watching was bad. And it's not just us. This was everybody around the state was feeling a sense of lamentation about how this was going. Now, the thought that it would turn around like this didn't seem probable because of all the things that needed to come together in order for this thing to work, because the Packers winning out was not the control their own destiny scenario, right? It was 800 other things that needed to fall exactly in that order.
Well, sure, right.
In order for it to work. So a lot of luck played into it. And I did like that Aaron said after the Packers beat up on the Vikings Sunday when he made sure to get his TV time, boy, I just got to say, go Browns. That was great, because if the Browns hadn't have won on Sunday, a lot of what we saw and talked about with Minnesota largely would have been mute, right? And so there seems to have been a lot of things that just kind of tumbled all together. And I don't miss the forest through the trees if I can avoid it. This is like a momentum surge going in the Packers' direction. And I know that a friend of mine does not want me to mention this because they're very, very superstitious, like wear the same clothes on Packer games and all sorts of shit. But this does remind me a teeny bit of 2010 because Aaron Rodgers cut his hair. I'm serious. We're going to the haircut stuff. Aaron Rodgers cut his hair. There was a dynamic guy in the secondary with Woodson, and now we've got Jair.
Right.
You had, the same field goal kicker still on the team, Mason Crosby. So there's that. And I'm feeling it. It's like 2010 all over again. That's what I'm sort of getting right now. I wouldn't want to play the Packers if I know that they can run the ball 30 times a game and Rodgers just has to make, Chad, 2 or 3 of those great throws a game, because that's all that's happening now. That's all that's really happening. It's like if Michael Jordan would have, at the end of his career, as opposed to going to the Washington Wizards, had gone to play for the San Antonio Spurs. That's what this would be like in some ways, because he wouldn't have to hit every shot, wouldn't have to dominate, just a couple a game where nobody can stop it, do that one Mike thing, in his case, that one Aaron thing, and there you go. That can be a recipe for success.
And what's really turned around, I think the biggest turnaround is maybe Joe Barry is going to keep his job if they make the playoffs, because I think the defense has made the biggest impact. And then you add Nixon on kick returns and punt returns, and his ability to blow that wide open and take it to the house has been huge. The secondary for Green Bay, especially last week, played out of their mind. And then the run game has been established. All of those things are basically saying what you just said, which means there's less pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't have to be the MVP the whole entire game. He can have these little MVP moments and throw some of those balls that only he can throw. Occasionally, he doesn't have to do it on every single play. And clearly, I think that he has figured that out as well and accepted that as well, and is, being smart about it. Where I think in the beginning of the season, he was struggling a little bit with it and wanting to blame his inexperienced wide receivers. But, hats off to these guys. They've turned this thing around, and it's impressive.
It is more than impressive, Chad. The Packers making the postseason, and I know that I speak for Packer fans, but I think as sports fans in general, and I say this because I look at every national sports site, and they're all talking about the Packers the same way that we are. If the Packers make the postseason, this will be considered, regardless of where they go, if they go anywhere in the postseason, this will be looked at as one of those great regular season turnarounds of all time. This really will, because the inordinate amount of things that needed to happen, and especially considering just how the Packers were playing. The last time they played the Lions, let's not forget, we all came onto this program, the Sports Carnival, and said, what the fuck was that? They lost 15-9.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers threw 3 interceptions. 15-9. You can't blame Joe Barry's defense for that.
No,
can you?
No,
you can't. If you can't win after somebody scores 15 on you, well, you can't win football games. So the idea that we should have been like, Aaron, I got to tell you, this really looks good from a Packer fan perspective. And I don't know what it is we're talking about. That's the kind of thing I'm like with the smug smirk. I'm like, hey, listen, man. Okay, I get it. And you're having a moment, and this is fantastic. But don't look at me like I just fell off the fucking wagon. All right. This was looking like the whole train was about to come off the track. And it didn't. And that's great. But it wasn't just because the Packers, by their will and bootstraps, made it all happen. There were so many things that needed to happen in their direction. But thank God it did, because now we get Sunday Night Football. And this was something that we were curious about earlier in the week, and then it was announced on Monday before the Monday night. They flexed it to Sunday Night Football.
Which was smart.
It's the biggest game of the weekend, right? It really is, because it's got this kind of implication. It's the biggest game of the weekend. I'm super excited for it. I know that Kyle Morningwood, Jason P1 Breacher, and a couple of other Packer fans had made a reservation at a particular establishment last weekend. I wonder if this restaurant is going to stay open now, because Sunday Night Football isn't Sunday football, right? A lot of these places are open during that time, and then you might shut down on Sunday night, whatever, depending on your kind of business. So I wonder, guys, you better call them and see if they're still going to be able to have you out there.
Yeah, make your plans ahead of time. I think that all the bars are probably going to be packed, right?
They might be. Chad, when we come back, let's do this. Let's talk some NFL betting, because it's not just the Packers lines. Packers 4.5-point favorites, and the total creeping up pretty high, 49.5 right now. There are quite a few other games. Last night I was on ESPN 105.5 with John Papadopoulos. I gave my play of the week. When we come back, we'll talk about that particular play, why I like it so much. And Chad, we'll go back and forth on all these games and just see where we're at. Stay tuned. You're listening to and watching the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices. The official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest Mortgage Team of Land Home Financial, my good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Listen, we all know the mortgage industry is in a bit of an upheaval right now, and that's why it's more important than ever to go to a couple of guys that you can trust, a local operation right here in La Crosse. That is the Midwest Mortgage Team. Again, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi of Land Home Financial. Don't make a mistake with your mortgage needs. Go to the official mortgage provider of the Sports Carnival, the Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Always try to be yourself. Unless you suck, then try to be better. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Hey, you can always just try to be like me. I'll let you I'll license you me if you want that. How much do you think we could get? $5, $6?
Sure.
Okay.
$2.
$2?
Yeah, sure.
$2 American or Canadian?
Oh yeah, loonies. They'd be loonies.
They would, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Pat Tully was checking in here. Pat from Stoddard. Pat, so glad to see your name popping up more and more now. YouTube, over 100 subscribers on YouTube. The Facebook feed really seems to be where we're getting most of our audience members. Chad, I'm looking at numbers yesterday, 300-400 views per show. So thank you guys and gals. Keep it coming. Pat saying on YouTube, however, again, at the Sports Carnival, want to thank the NFL for putting us at 720. If the Seahawks win, Detroit will be out before kickoff. That is real talk. The Seahawks are currently the same record, 8-8, as the Lions, same record as the Packers. Seahawks, I believe, only have by percentage an 8% chance, ironically, to make the postseason, because they'd have to win. Detroit would have to win. They would still beat out. So there's I don't know that they could, realistically hope to get in. But you're right. If the Seahawks win, they have to, because they've still got a shot. Then the Lions would be automatically eliminated there. Let's see what this Facebook user is saying here. Wow, this is a big one. I think losing 7 of 8 games to fall to 4-8 at that time humbled him, talking about Aaron Rodgers. I noticed a change in his attitude. He started to smile, have more fun, stop blaming teammates with his demeanor. I think moving from a bun to the shaved back and long hair on top, the last 2 weeks haircut, like a CEO, is just part of being a leader again. There is something to energy that gets tied up in your hair. Right? Like, I know that sounds stupid and crazy, but it's not. Like, people that have really long hair. I mean, I've talked to people that have had dreadlocks before that have cut them down. Maybe they cut them because they had something happen, and there's a lot of energy that stays in there. There is something to that. I don't think that has anything to do with why the Packers are winning, but I do think that Aaron and his coaches, because if we're to believe, because you know what we're not talking about anymore, the thumb injury, right? Like, once the Packers started to win, the thumb's fine. Because it never needed surgery at all. But it was just enough of a thumb injury to when they were losing. Damn it. This thing just isn't going to work. But once you're winning again, what thumb injury? I don't remember that. But I think Aaron and the coaches, if I'm just guessing, had to have a real serious conversation because there were real reasons to start thinking about and pondering starting Jordan Love, right? Like that was something that needed to be considered at a certain point because of what was happening and the way the season was unfolding. If I'm the Packers coaching staff, GM Brian Gutekunst, probably Mark Murphy, I don't know if he got involved in this stuff, had to ask Aaron and talk to him about like, look, dude, we can do this way, or we can just like, we can blow this season and we'll have to move on from you because if we don't run the football, you're fucked. The offensive line was way too it was way too influx. There were guys coming in and out every week, which was a real problem early this season for Green Bay. But if they didn't start dedicating themselves to running the football, limiting Rodgers' throws, he only threw 24 times against Minnesota. The Packers scored 41 points. He threw the ball 24 times. When you've got that kind of balance and you don't need that dude to do as much, then this thing can start working. So, to your point, the smile, I think that happens when, maybe Rodgers took assessment of himself and, gave himself a reflection and said, I want to win this season. Maybe I'm not the Rodgers of 2010. That's okay too. Let's go play ball. That's fair.
Well, yeah, and I think that the Facebook user kind of put it in perspective there. I think that there was that epiphany. There was that, aha moment for him. Like, okay, I got to change things a little bit here, and I don't want this season to be over with. And then, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of things had to go their way. It wasn't just about winning. Obviously, they're on this win streak, and they had to win out. We all knew that, which was going to be tough enough as it is, and they're one game away from doing that. But a lot of other teams had to lose, and it worked almost like it was scripted. Again, I'm not saying it was, but it was almost perfect if you're a Packers fan. And if you're a Packer, you're like, wow, this thing fell in line exactly like we wanted to. All we have to do now is, win at home against the Lions and we're in, and then it's a new season, right? Because you really look at the playoffs like it's a new season. Now, how well they do in the playoffs, that's a whole nother, discussion. And honestly, I think that the way they're playing now, if they can continue to play that way, I think they can give some of these teams trouble. I think there's some teams that are looking at them going, I don't really want to play Green Bay. Now, granted, they're not going to have home field advantage.
No.
So that will be a disadvantage. So these last 2 weeks are good in that respect too, that they were able to finish out at home against two dome teams. It's like everything is just like a perfect recipe for them.
It really is. And the Green Bay Packers in 2010, very similar situation, had to play every game on the road before they went to where? I want to say it was Arizona, where they won that Super Bowl. I think it was, right? Was that Arizona or was that in some other place? We'll have to check. I can't remember that right now for whatever reason. But this year's Super Bowl is in Arizona. I think that there are a lot of similarities tying together 2010 and now. If the Packers do end up winning a Super Bowl this year, Chad, I can't even imagine what would happen to Packer fans. Like, I don't know how
They'd lose their mind. Yeah.
Like, absolutely lose their mind. Speaking of completely non-scripted sports-related news, Vince McMahon, at 77 years old, has decided to unretire from the WWE prior to WWE media talks and negotiations. Vince McMahon retired over the summer following allegations of sexual misconduct, Chad, that included non-disclosure agreement payments. Though McMahon used personal funds for the NDA payments, he failed to record those expenses, which totaled not a small amount, but $19.6 million. So he's coming back. He says, quote, the WWE is entering a critical juncture in its history with the upcoming media rights negotiations coinciding with the increased industry-wide demand for quality content and live events, and with more companies seeking to own intellectual property on their platforms. He added, my return will allow WWE as well as any transaction counterparties to engage in these processes, knowing they will have the support of the controlling shareholder, and you don't need to sign an NDA. We will make this public. I added that last part, but the rest of it was from Vince McMahon. So, and I wanted to just throw the completely unscripted sports news out there of the day.
Yeah,
with what you just talked about.
I like that. Vince McMahon's coming back to do what?
He's not the 2010 Super Bowl, dude. I was talking about the champions in 2010. The Super Bowl was played in 11, Jeff. And so Vince McMahon's coming back to. I mean, again, he's 77. He's unretiring, but it allows him to, in the negotiations with these media companies, from what I'm understanding from that statement, to say Vince McMahon's part of the WWE, because that has, I would imagine, some cachet when you're making said negotiations.
Right.
I mean, it's going to be a real hard thing when they reboot the Cosby Show and it's just like Rudy and Malcolm Jamal Warner. And everybody's just talking about how they got fucked by Bill. Like that would be,
that's not so Raven.
Oh man. So, all right, let's let's take a look at this poll question. Chad, asking our audience members who's going to win on Sunday, Packers-Lions, we're still looking at heavy Packerdom coming down here, about 87, 89% now on our Twitter feed, 84% still over there on the Facebook group page. Again, on Twitter at the Sports Carney, and all across social media at the Sports Carney. If you've got a TikTok feed, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Snapchat, if you're on Facebook, we've already got you covered. Any of those platforms, it's at the Sports Carney. All right. So give us a follow across the social media platforms. We'd love it if you did. Chad, let's bring up our list of NFL games, the entire schedule of NFL games, which kicks off Saturday. We had no Thursday night football last night, of course. And that was for some people, the realization that the football season is getting close to being over.
Yeah, it kind of sucked.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody and they're like, wait, no Thursday night football. What are we going to watch? And I said, well, the Mavericks are playing the Celtics. And then I found out the Mavericks weren't playing the Celtics, Chad. The Celtics were just out there to just fucking ridiculous. Like they just blew those dudes out of the building, man. They killed them.
Well, Luka wasn't playing like himself. He obviously didn't have a normal Luka game. So that had a huge part to do with it. Jason Tatum put up a nice triple-double, which was cool. And the Celtics rolled. As you said, I think Dallas, when Luka's not playing up to his Luka standards, they're not a very good team.
They're not a very good team overall. And I think losing Jalen Brunson means a lot more to them than they think. They don't have a big that can block a shot or really get any consistent rebounds. And then Dallas's inconsistency sometimes from behind the arc it dooms them. And that's unfortunate because we see this in baseball too. If you're not hitting 800 home runs, all of a sudden you can't hit the ball anymore. It's in the NBA now. If you're not hitting your 3-pointers, you're losing. That's why the Celtics were 5-7 over their last 12. You look at their 3-point percentage, they were down 10 to 17% across the board.
Yeah.
So I digress. Football, we miss you already. But Saturday, tomorrow, we've got NFL football. Week 18 kicks off Kansas City, Vegas. The Chiefs are right now 9-point favorites. Total, Chad, sitting at 52.5, 52.5. I like Kansas City in this game. I don't know if I like the number. I think that the Chiefs are going to win by a touchdown. I think the Raiders will be plucky enough to keep in it. Stidham was impressive enough against Brock Purdy and the 49ers, and really the defense of the 49ers. I thought Stidham played well. I just don't know that 9 is a number that I'd mess with. Kansas City wants to win. I don't know that they feel they need to win, but they want to win, and I would say Kansas City does, but the number just feels a little heavy.
I'd take the Raiders in the points, and I'd go under on that.
Under 52.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably take Raiders points and go over if it were me. But let's look at Tennessee, Jacksonville, and I guess we just go right here because this is the Saturday game, the second Saturday game. This is, as a matter of fact, my play of the week. So yesterday on ESPN with John Papadopoulos, where you can hear me every Thursday at 5:05 p.m. with John Papadopoulos on the Sports Lead. I break down the week's games, whichever they may be, NFL, college football, basketball, and then give my play of the week. The Jacksonville-Tennessee game is my play of the week. So Jacksonville's on a 4-game win streak. The Titans are on a 6-game losing streak. The Titans have decided to sign a guy and start a guy on Saturday named Josh Dobbs. Yeah, they picked this guy up off of the unemployment line about 12 days ago. He played a little bit in last week's game. Seriously, he was an unemployed person until about 12 days ago.
Yeah.
So now he's starting an NFL football game for the Tennessee Titans, who at 7-9 are still mathematically in for the playoffs. If they win this game against Jacksonville, they'd be in. They're not going to. Tennessee's, again, lost 6 games in a row. Everything but the wheels have fallen off of that team. And Jacksonville, under Doug Peterson, former Packer assistant coach, guy that worked with Andy Reid for a long time and really, cut his chops under Andy Reid, Super Bowl winner with Philadelphia. He's got Trevor Lawrence in this team playing really, really good right now. Lawrence is starting to figure it out. I like Jacksonville, and I love this number. 6.5 means we get to cover that 7-point hook, right? So if you win by a touchdown with a 6.5-point spread, you win. The number is sitting at 40. It was 39.5 yesterday. I say you go over that. I think that Jacksonville really runs away with this thing early. By the third quarter, they might start pulling guys, and then you could start to see Tennessee possibly junk it up a bit and get some late scores, which could affect the number. I won't say it couldn't affect that 6.5-point spread, but I really like the over on this one as well.
Yeah, I like Jacksonville on this. I like that 6.5, and yeah, I think that I would take the over as well on this game. And you're right. It's amazing what Trevor Lawrence has been able to do. And obviously Doug Peterson's had a lot to do with that over the last couple of weeks and really improved. And Jacksonville's kind of become one of the hot teams, which is interesting. You don't normally put those words together in the same sentence. Jacksonville, hot team.
No.
It's a hot mess.
Right,
So,
Jacksonville, just hot and fucking muggy. Wait, is that an alligator with my jersey right there? Come back.
Right. Right.
No, you don't. And let's face facts. The last time the Jags were even a considerably relevant team was when Tom Coughlin was still involved in the organization, right? He had come back to be president. Blake Bortles was quarterback, and they lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. The Patriots then go on to lose to Nick Foles and the Eagles in the Super Bowl. But that was the last time the Patriots were the Jags were actually anything to write home about. So this is quite a story and quite a turn. And I thought that Trevor Lawrence last year was given a really bad hand, because when they hired Urban fucking Meyer, I was all over that from the beginning as a dumpster fire in waiting, and it was just so bad. There was no way that Trevor Lawrence could have succeeded. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, Chad and I are going to continue rolling here on the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios with more sports betting talk. Again, go to betus.com, enter the promo code CARNIVAL, and claim 125% free play money when you make your initial deposit.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home, or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of OneTrust Real Estate.
Hello, I am Don Francisco, and I roast and blend coffees for your pleasure and mine. My newest blend is Vanilla Nuts. The coffee so rich and so sweet, it tastes like the French Alps has dangled its in your cup of java. If you love coffee like I do, then you'll love Don Francisco's with a 135-year tradition. Because at Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
Back to the action live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival. As Mark Twain once said, never put off till tomorrow what you can do the day after tomorrow. I agree. Here's your host, Dave Carney.
Yeah, baby. Jeremy P12 Foreman checking in saying Mark Brunell, Fred Taylor. Yeah, those were good Jags players back in the day. Mark Brunell, one of the few left-handed quarterbacks, man, of recent.
From University of Washington, Mark
That's
Brunell.
right. Yeah. That's right. Hope you guys are having a great start to your Friday morning. Big weekend coming up. The Bucks are going to be back in action coming up this weekend. Milwaukee basketball is going to see the Bucks, who have just come off a recent 104-101 win, take on the Hornets. That game is actually tonight. I shouldn't say this weekend. That game is tonight. We have Wisconsin Badger basketball coming up tomorrow. Badgers taking on Illinois, I believe. And yesterday we had Hunter Bumgart on from 97.3 The Game in Milwaukee. Follow Hunter on social media at Hunter B on air, because he is now doing the post-game stuff for the Wisconsin Badgers. Really, really good show. And if you download the iHeartRadio app, you can listen to Hunter everywhere you are. You can also listen to the Sports Carnival on the iHeartRadio app. So go ahead and put that on your phone if you don't have it already, and check that out. But we're really, as much as we love the Bucks and we love the Badgers men's basketball team, wake us up in about 6 more weeks, because this is football season, baby. And this is about the Packers going to the postseason. Take this morning's poll question at the Sports Carney on our Twitter feed, our Sports Carnival group page, and just let us know straight up, who do you think wins, the Packers or the Lions? And 90-10 right now on Twitter is where we're at, Packers beating the Lions. Pat Tully said he likes the under in the Jags game. The reason that I don't like the under in this one is because Jacksonville, over the last 4 games, when they've been on this little heater of theirs, has been scoring at a really good clip. All right. So they're putting up 30, 31 points against all of these teams, which means, and this is something we have seen quite a bit, these games, when they get a little out of hand, and if, say, Jacksonville starts to pull players in the third period because they've got a 21-point lead or something, right? Say they're up, 28-7, and we're still sitting there and it's, hovering at 35, right? Cool. The Jags are going to pull guys, and then Tennessee is going to start to want to score. I mean, that's what they're going to want to do, to try to make an effort out of it.
Garbage time.
It's garbage time, baby. And that's what I think happens here, which is why I would say my confidence level in the Jags number is high. It's high, but my confidence number on the total is like a solid lock. I really do like that one. I know Tennessee's got issues. They're going to give this a game effort. Mike Vrabel's not going to go out in the final game of the season without a fight. That's one thing for sure. He is not going to go out without a fight. I just don't think they have the players or the scheme right now to be able to beat Jacksonville. But Pat, I appreciate you checking back in there.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. That's probably exactly what's going to happen. And that's what screws you on those totals, right? especially this time of the year when you have guys that are, they're going to sit a bunch of dudes,
Yep.
especially in the second half in a lot of these games. And then you get second and third string guys, and you're not exactly sure, how that pans out, especially with not really having a real preseason. We haven't seen a lot of these guys on the field. So, yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so let's go to Sunday because we've got the Bucs and the Falcons. Tampa Bay already in the playoffs, 8-8. Tom Brady, what an incredible record he's got this year, a 500 record going into the postseason, hosting a playoff game. You want to talk about some guys have all the luck. Well, that's Tom Brady in this particular case. I know that Tom wants to play these games. The Falcons are awful, and they're playing for nothing at this point. The Falcons are favored by 4. What are your thoughts here? Are the Bucs actually going to start this cat? Because, Tom's going on the record saying, of course, I want to play every game. I want to play an 18th game. I want to play preseason. But I don't know if they'll let him do it. I think they probably take that kid Trusk or whatever they drafted a year or so ago and throw him out there against Atlanta. I would say the Falcons -4, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that's kind of the way I was leaning, but I personally wouldn't put any money on this game because of these question marks. There's too many question marks on that. Yeah, you don't know if Tom Brady's going to play or not. Tom Brady had a great week last week, just dropping dimes, throwing long bombs all game long. Is he even going to play? And if he does play, will we see? Because we don't see the same Tom every week, right?
No,
that's one thing that that you can tell with some of these older quarterbacks, the consistency drops off. So to me, there's too many question marks. I would stay away from it.
Yeah, Jeremy P12 Foreman picking up what I was putting down and correcting me. Thank you, or at least giving me the full information. Kyle Trask is the quarterback I was talking about from Florida. So that's who the Bucs drafted. I want to say in the 3rd round or so. It was a year or so ago. And he was a good college quarterback. And who knows? That may be the future of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because it sure ain't Tom Brady. And I don't want to get into this right now, but we had a bit a couple of weeks ago that's going to age really, really well, because we were talking about the only 2 places that Brady could feasibly go, the Raiders or the 49ers. And now there has become an increased sense that Tom Brady will end up going to the Raiders this offseason. But yes, that is what we're starting to see now. This was all the rage yesterday. And I know literally, who was it that was talking about Brady? It was one of his former teammates. Oh, Drew Bledsoe said Tom might actually play till he's 60 now. Like he's almost to that point now. He's like, now he got divorced. He's like, I don't know. I think he might actually play till he's 60.
But the Raiders are traditionally like the NFL superstar graveyard. Every great player at some point ends up on the Raiders.
Then. Well, why not him? Randy Moss there for a real unproductive year. Dante Culpepper ruined
Jerry Rice. There's so many guys that end up there, and you're like, you know what? Just hang it up, man. It's time to go, brother. It's time to go.
Yeah, let's pump the brakes just a little bit, because with Rich Gannon and Jerry Rice, that wasn't a bad combo. Rich Gannon won the MVP one year. And
I know, but you know what I mean. And then the other thing is all the old Heisman winners, they always seem to collect guys that are out of their prime. And I don't see that being.
You telling me that Tom Brady at 46 isn't in the prime of his athletic career? Like, what are you saying to me?
Especially after what we just saw with Damar Hamlin, if you're that age, are you not thinking about that? I don't know. And again, we don't know if that was caused from that hit or not, but let's just say it was, and it's a 1 in 200 million shot or whatever, according to what I read, that would ever even happen.
Yeah.
It's still a possibility. And I would imagine it's easier to bounce back when you're 24 than it is when you're 46. Am I right?
I would say
I know Tom Brady does walk on water. I get it. But at some point, he's going to have to leave the game.
As I'm sitting here on my, orthopedic pad with my heat, massager going on in the background because of my achy hips. Yeah, I can tell you with 100% assurity that over 40, you're going to start to feel that.
Yeah.
More. That's what I'm saying. And I it's a joke. Okay. So this isn't serious. I don't believe this will happen, but that's why I joke. Tom Brady might be the actual first on-field casualty we ever have in the NFL, because this man might never leave until he's actually dead. And that the NFL will continue to have him out there. If they could, if Michael Jordan still wanted to wheeze his way in at 55 or something, motherfucker, they would let that dude do it. All right, let's talk about Tom's former team, the Patriots and the Bills. There is still a lot to play for if you're Buffalo, because they're 12-3. If they win this game and Kansas City loses, they got that number 1 seed. I said yesterday, if Buffalo doesn't get any positive sign, and we largely agreed, I remember, if Buffalo doesn't get a positive sign from Damar Hamlin, count this game, take the Patriots plus the points, right? Take the Patriots plus the points. It might be a 10-3 game, but I would take the Patriots plus those points, or a 10-6 game. whatever. I just think that now that they have great news, not good, but great news coming from the Cincinnati hospital where Hamlin's at, the Buffalo Bills are going to roll up the New England Patriots something awful. I mean, the weather isn't supposed to be terrible from what I can understand. It doesn't matter. Mac Jones fucking sucks. And the Patriots offense is terrible. Their defense is fine. Belichick's done a good coaching job. They're 8-8 with this collection of non-players. But the Buffalo Bills are now going to kill these guys. 7 points. Yeah, give it to me. Like, give it to me.
I say Bills by 2 touchdowns.
At least.
I agree. I think
least.
it's the win one for the Gipper speech. It's storybook again, and thank God. I mean, we're all grateful for that.
Indeed.
That's great, and it's going to be a huge inspiration for the Bills, and I'm sure it's a huge relief out of a lot of these players' minds, right? So they're going to be able to be in that right headspace so that they can go out there and perform. And I think that the Patriots are in for an ass kicking.
Oh yeah, I think this is going to go under the. I think this is going to go under the definition of like, well, we didn't know that you hated them so bad. Like, okay, yeah,
right.
They're going to end up getting their shit pummeled. Minnesota, Chicago, the game that nobody cares about. Minnesota 12-4, 7.5 point favorites. Chicago's not playing Justin Fields. The Bears are going to lose this game. I don't know. Is Minnesota beating anybody by more than 7 points this season? Like, is that something they can do? I don't think that's the thing they've ever done. So I would stay away from this game. The total 43 is another meh. I'd probably take the over on this if you force me, but I have no real dog in this fight. Bengals, Ravens. This is another game in which the Bengals are going to feel quite a bit better because, see, now they don't have to worry about one of their players being like stalked on social media as the assassin in attempted waiting of DeMar Hamlin, and T. Higgins. It was just a football play. Like, it didn't look that bad. Really and truly, to me at the time, it didn't look that bad to me. Now, we know what happened. It is what it is. Cincinnati, 7 points. Give me 2 of them touchdowns for me, please. Baltimore is in a bad way. And Lamar Jackson right now is basically not playing because he knows he's still a little banged up and he didn't get that new contract. And I applaud that for him because, look, if you go step out on the field, you're Lamar Jackson, you're saying that you're healthy enough to play, right? The team will judge you on how you play because it's not going to be like, well, you really gutted it out there. Fuck no. You played and then you were bad. That will count against you in salary negotiations. So Lamar's out. John Harbaugh is really, really upset about it, but it is what it is. I take Cincinnati plus 2 touchdowns easy here.
Yeah, I like Cincinnati in this game as well. And I might even, you might even look at that over.
Oh, big time.
Yeah,
big time.
I agree.
Can score that by themselves in this one.
Yeah.
The Colts, Texans, this is only in play for the number 1 seed. The Colts are 2.5 point. This might be another tie. This could end 0-0. I don't know if anybody scores. I don't know who plays. This could be one of the worst games ever seen. In NFL
Stay
history.
away from it. Yeah.
A terrible game. Dolphins, Jets, again, implications here. Dolphins are actually home dogs against the Jets right now. The numbers move to Miami plus a point. Or actually, I'm sorry, now it's 2. It opened with them being dogs. Now it's 2. So I would say Miami here. The Jets, Mike White, not the answer. Zach Wilson, obviously. Stay away from that game. Don't really have anything on that. The Panthers and the Saints. This, again, really has no implications. I don't know that we need to really spend much on that. The Steelers, Browns. The Steelers could possibly make the postseason. Mike Tomlin's never finished with the losing record. This one's a little interesting here. So they're 2.5 point favorites. The Browns finally got a fairly decent win last week, and thank God, because the Packers needed that to happen. What do you think about Pittsburgh's chance of winning and possibly making the postseason in the AFC?
I'm going to go with Mike Tomlin in the Steelers pulling this out. I think they win.
Kenny Pickett's not been awful, since he took over the starting job. He's not been awesome, but he's not been awful. And I think that Pittsburgh probably wins this too. We'll see. I would, if I was in Pittsburgh right now, if you're Ben Roethlisberger and you want to help out, go meet Deshaun Watson for a quick rub and hug. That would just be my thing. Show him the Big Ben Raplesburger for us, okay? The Broncos and Chargers. Jesus, the Broncos are 2.5 point favorites here. That must mean because the Los Angeles Chargers have already clinched a postseason berth. Congratulations to that team. They must be sitting everybody. I still don't think I can take Denver here minus 2.5. I just don't know if I can.
Yeah, no, me neither. That's it. I'd just stay away from that completely.
Me too. Philadelphia, New York, Philly, 14 point favorites. They've got to win this one, Chad. Jalen Hurts was practicing yesterday. I don't know about his status, but 14's a lot to lay in a pro game, man. That's a lot to lay. I might, but I don't know. The 49ers, they're 14 point favorites against the Cardinals. That's your favorite team. Who do you like there?
Oh, Niners all the way, baby.
Okay. Seattle, if the Seattle Seahawks beat the Rams, which is very likely, They're 6-point favorites. That means the Lions are out anyways. And again, Sunday Night Football, we've got Packers-Lions, with the Packers being 4.5-point favorites. Our poll question up there at the Sports Carney on Twitter and our Facebook group page is asking you who you think wins. And I think that we're all pretty much in agreement here. The Packers win. They covered this spread. Go Pack, go. And on to the postseason, man. Monday, we come back, and we're talking about where the Packers are going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs. Who would have fucking thought that would be a thing?
Unbelievable. Well, have a great weekend.
Ah.
Later.